Good evening, everybody, and welcome, and thank you for attending here tonight. We're going to call the meeting of today's date, October 24th. Is it 24th?
It is.
2019 to order. Vince, can I have the roll call, please?
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Here.
Council members Achara.
Here.
Donlin.
Here.
Fisher.
Here.
And Mayor Siciliano.
Here. Being that this is a workshop, we're not going to stand and do the salute. We do that at our regular meeting, so we're just going to go through our workshop agenda, which for this one now, it's a special workshop agenda. And basically, it's just going to be for a presentation from Jody Powers in a moment, once I read in a little disclaimer about the deer management and some alternatives there, or how to manage deer. Anyway, so the notice requirement for the Open Public Meeting Act for this meeting has been satisfied. A copy of the annual notice was sent to the Asbury Park Press, Coaster, and posted in Town Hall and filed in the office of the municipal clerk on December 28th, 2018. There are two fire exits, one to my left, which will take you out to the back parking lot, and one to my right, which will take you out to the front parking lot. If you have a cell phone on, please turn it off. You can keep it on silent or put it on vibrate. If you need to make a call, kindly go out into the hallway. We tape and archive all these meetings, and it interferes with the volume and the audio. Okay? I'm going to get right to it. So at this time, let me introduce, this meeting's being taped. I'm going to introduce Miss Jody Powers from New Jersey Game and Wildlife. Correct? Okay. So come on up, introduce yourself, and tell us what you got.
All right, well, first let me turn my phone off.
Okay. Yes, we'll get you first. And again, just so you know, Jody's not here as one side or the other. She's just here to give us information only. We do have a referendum that will be out on the November ballot for you to decide on which way you want us to best proceed with deer management. We get a couple of alternatives are on the ballot question, and they're non-binding. I just want to reiterate that it's a non-binding referendum question. So, and what that means is we don't have to act on it. If I see there's a 50 vote either way, then we're going to probably regroup and discuss what we're going to do from there on. All right. So I just want you to know nothing's set in stone here. We're just getting some information. Don't shoot the messenger. She's here as a guest, and we want to treat her like a guest, as we always do. So let's be kind to Jody, and let's hear what she has to say.
So, yes, my name is Jody Powers. I am one of two deer biologists for the Division of Fish and Wildlife. I've been with the Deer Project for over 20 years. So I want to thank you for having me. I'm here to give you, like you said, science-based information and facts to provide you with the information you need to make a decision on how you want to manage deer for
Can I make one suggestion before you start?
Is it
Move
not
that more
on?
closer to you.
No, it's on, but it probably
It is?
It's
Move it
on. You
close
just have
to
to
you
move
as
it
you
closer
Okay.
to
Do
pick
you want me
it
to repeat any of that?
No,
No.
up.
Okay.
Perfect.
it was very good the first time.
So, so I'm trying to give you, again, science-based facts for you guys to make a decision on how you want to manage deer for the residents of Ocean Township. Usually the presentation takes over an hour, so I'm just going to get right to it. I think you've already established that you have some sort of an issue with overabundance of deer, so I'm going to skip all the deer biology and all of that information and get right to mainly what the options are. I also want to state that the division, and as everyone does, understands that deer play an important role in the ecosystem and the landscape when it's in balance. When that becomes out of balance, when there's overabundance of deer, that's when you start to see some negative impacts. And there are public safety impacts, such as increasing in deer vehicle accidents, public health, increases in tick-borne illnesses, forest health issues where the native species get overbrowsed and eaten. The invasive species are allowed to grow up, and that affects every little critter that depends on that healthy ecosystem. And also there's cultural and social impacts. Your residents complain that they can't grow vegetable gardens, they can't plant ornamental plantings, they can't go out and enjoy the open spaces and landscape because of the fecal matter. So these are all things that happen when things are out of balance. So there are some lethal and non-lethal options to deal with overabundance of deer. And that's what this is. This is just going to be a conversation about what those options are. So there's behavior modification for humans and the deer, such as deer fencing, deterrence, signage, And some of those do work short term, but they don't provide any solution long term, and they don't alleviate the problems of the number of deer that are already here. None of that requires a special permit from Fish and Wildlife. The other options, either lethal or non-lethal, some of them do, and I'm going to go into some of those. So another non-lethal strategy that comes up a lot is trap and transfer. So basically you would trap the deer, you bait them in, tranquilize them, trap them, move them to another location. All of that requires a special permit from Fish and Wildlife through our Fish and Game Council, and currently that's not really an option. With the outbreak of chronic wasting disease, which is the mad cow of the deer species, we can no longer move deer out of state, and we can't move deer in state. In addition to that, where are you going to move them in New Jersey? There's really nowhere else to put them in the state of New Jersey currently. A lot of it is dealing with an overabundance of deer as it is. Even if that was an option, it tends to sometimes turn into a lethal, has lethal effect because deer are very high stress. They sometimes get something called capture myopathy, which they can die of. If you're moving deer to a different location, there's different food sources, so they can get ill and sick because their bodies can't process that food. Disease spread. And they also don't know where they are, and it increases them being killed by vehicles because they don't realize the roads are there. So again, that's not really an option currently. Other non-lethal that come up are birth control, and there's many options of birth control, dealing with the females and the males. So it could either be, drugs, it could be removing the ovaries, performing tubal ligations. All of that is very labor intensive. It's very expensive because each deer has to be captured and tranquilized, and some surgical procedure has to be placed on it. There's also some research for performing vasectomies on the males. Staten Island currently is in their 4th or 5th year at the tune of $8 million to perform vasectomies on deer. It's not currently working because it's an open landscape. A lot of these birth controls have some success on a closed, fenced-in population, not on one that's free to range, move about the landscape. Deer move in, deer move out. And just for an example, we've had 2 or 3 deer that have been had vasectomies in Staten Island show up in New Jersey. They're swimming across the river, they're swimming across Raritan Bay. So if they're getting out, that males are getting in. So that would require a special permit from Fish and Wildlife through the Fish and Game Council. It's called a community-based permit. Any of these birth control methodologies are research-based and they're experimental. None of them have been proven to work significantly on a free-ranging population. So that brings us to lethal methods, and that is hunting with hunters. If you choose to go that route, if you just followed the regulations and the bag limits and the laws that are currently on the books now for deer hunting, no special requirements are needed from Fish and Wildlife. You could just have a controlled hunt, which means you establish what properties you want to have hunted. Based on the acreage, we determine how many hunters are allowed in there. There's an application process that would be set up by you. We would assist in all of this. So you would know there could be background checks to make sure that there's no Fish and Wildlife violations on these hunters. So they're licensed, they're safe, who's in here, and it could be set for as many days or afternoons or whatever you need to meet your goals. And we would help you decide what those goals are. So again, if you just decided to follow the regular seasons, you wouldn't need anything specifically from us. If you decided to go outside of the regular seasons, such as bringing in sharpshooters or allowing them to trap and shoot at night, that would require a special permit, again, through our Fish and Wildlife Council. That's basically in a nutshell. If you have questions, I know I kind of went through that pretty quickly, but I wanted to get through what the options are and then enable you to have ask me questions in the time that I'm here.
When you open it up to, if we decide to do a lethal hunt, and you just hope anybody can get a license, a permit?
To hunt in New Jersey as it is, you have to have gone through a hunter education course, and then you get a license from us. Either, most likely, if you decide to go that route, it would only be archery here. And that you would have to have a bow license from us. The hunter does. Other than that, I mean, if you wanted to set up, they would have an access permit from you. It could be free of charge, or you could charge them to hunt. And then that way we could limit how many hunters are allowed in. And that meat could be donated to a food bank. So you would be, removing the deer.
They'd have to do it all.
Yes, and they would willingly.
Okay. Now, do they also? Someone mentioned that there's apprentice hunters. Do they accompany the?
There is a new program called an apprentice hunter. They don't have a license, but you don't have to allow that if you don't want to. You could just have licensed hunters. Yes.
But these aren't the sharpshooters. So, I don't know if you know this. What's the accuracy rate of a typical bow hunter?
Accuracy as far as lethal kill.
Yes.
It's pretty high. It's about 75-85%. And you could put restrictions on the limit the yardage that you would allow them to shoot to make sure it's a clean kill.
Can I just follow up on that
Yeah.
question? So the 75 to 80% is based on what, if I can ask?
There has been studies shown, and I can provide the links to you. It's a national study on. It's called Hunter Losses, and it's based on how many shots and then how many. So it's basically I think it's like 1.17 shots for every deer that's killed.
So they're
So
not
it's-
taking 20 shots to
No,
kill. Okay.
absolutely not. No.
Someone.
It's based on, sorry.
It's a nationwide survey of hunter losses, so they'll go out and look for hunter lost deer and then try to figure out how many hunters were out there and yeah. So
I have a question. So, what are other towns in this area doing? Like, can you give us an example of somebody who's in our vicinity?
yes, so there's multiple towns in Monmouth County that have hunts, and a lot of them just allow hunting. They don't have any sort of a controlled hunt, no program. So like Neptune's one of them, Tinton Falls, Wall Township. There's a few that have special permits, like not special permits from us, but they have like controlled hunts. I'm trying to think, like Shoretown. Shrewsbury had one a number of years ago, and they took out 70 deer in the first year.
So, are you seeing any problems? Anything that comes up that's not ordinary, or is it just hunting and that's the business of hunting?
Problems in what way?
Neighbor's kid gets an arrow in the tree. Weird things.
Yeah, we have deer hunting alone has a very low rate of injury, hunting accidents. I think last year there was 5 hunting accidents and none of them involved deer. They were mostly small game hunters and most of them were hunter. I don't believe we've ever had a injury of a non-hunter from a hunter. They're either self-inflicted or like small game. Small game is a whole different ball game, but if you're pheasant hunting, there's more of a chance of getting hit by a pellet than any deer hunting accidents.
How much time and energy would our resources have to get involved? Our police department, our Department of Public Works, stuff like that.
The upstart it's a little bit because I believe Ocean Township would require an ordinance change to allow hunting on public properties, and that's the other thing. Like we could decide what properties, because I doubt that there's going to be hunting on private properties. I don't know what your minimum acreage as far as building and whatnot is.
25. I think it's 25 for hunting.
Right. So the only option would probably be Palea Park, honestly, and then Wentz or
Welts.
Well,
Welts,
Welts is
which is part of
county.
Monmouth County, which I don't believe is hunted by Monmouth County Parks, but we could try to add that in. So it would only be Palea Park. So I think you would need an ordinance change to allow deer management on public property.
How do you handle like a Palea Park that has trails and meandering through.
And a lot of towns do it. A lot of townships do it on municipal property. Just for instance, like we were just working with Cranberry. We were just working with Plainsboro. They both have had programs. Plainsboro, this is their second one. Cranberry's just started this year. But there's a lot of county parks that, like Monmouth County Parks, Mercer County Parks, they all have hunting going on while the trails are opened. Because it's only one park and how heavily it's used, you can certainly limit the number of days or even times that you wanted to allow the hunters out. So, hunting could be, you're allowed to hunt a half hour before sunrise, so you could close the park if you wanted to. You wouldn't have to, but you could close it to noon. And then the hunters could only be in there from, sunrise to noon. They have to be out, and then everyone else could come in. Obviously, nothing. I mean, I believe there's recreation fields in Palea Park, so clearly you wouldn't have hunting going on while there's soccer games going on or baseball games going on.
What's the length of time that it would take to achieve the goals, the reasonable goals for this? Is it months? Is it something you'd have to do every year?
It's something that you would have to do every year. It's not a 1 year and done. You could have a significant impact in 1 year, but it is going to take a couple of years to get the population down to a level that it would just be a maintenance. But it's sort of just like, your garbage pickup or landscaping, or it's not a one and done. Raritan Valley Community College, which I don't know how many acres Palea Park is.
208.
So it's fairly small. So you could have a pretty big impact fairly quickly. Raritan Valley Community College, this is their third year, and they've the first year they dropped their population by half. The second year they halved it again, and now it's just a maintenance program.
Even with the migratory deer coming in from.
Yes,
Hitting
you
falls,
will
eating
have a
down.
little bit of a filter effect, but it's not instantaneous. It's not like you remove 5 deer and the next day 5 deer are in there. Deer have they have a 1 square mile home range, and they don't really vary from that much. So it would take a while for a deer to realize, oh, there's not a deer in this area, so I can move in. It takes a while. Some towns decide to do some sort of a survey to find out exactly how many deer they have in here before they even start, and they try to base that as a success. And currently, the big thing is drone surveys. There's a couple companies out there that will do a drone survey. We'll fly it when the leaf cover's gone, and try to get a number, and then you can do it again in a couple years or every year and see how it's decreasing.
Well, they will do just the area we want hunted, or the town.
They could do the whole town if you want to.
Have you worked with Colts Neck just did that? Were you involved in that?
We put them in contact with the company, and then the Farm Bureau actually just paid the company to do a bunch of open space areas and agriculture areas, and that's how they're getting some of their numbers.
Can we go back to the Staten Island example? And you and I met
Yep, a couple
a
years
year ago, whatever
Yep.
it was. We've been at this a while.
Yes.
Getting closer.
Yeah.
So you didn't use Staten Island as an example last time, or I don't think you did, but you gave me us a rough number of what it does cost for the sterilization or vasectomy or what have you. Can you just give us some figures on what it takes? See if my my memory's still right.
Yeah. So Staten Island is a big example, but that's $8 million. So that's a lot. There's a couple companies, White Buffalo, Princeton, did a sterilization study a number of years ago. They've since abandoned that. They do have sharpshooters that come in. It tends to run $1,000 a deer, and that's for most of that is man hours, because you're actually, like I said, you have to bait them in. You have to tranquilize each deer. It's the surgery, so it turns out to be like between $8,000 and $1,000 a deer.
And that's one time?
It depends on what you wanted to do. If it was ovectomy, where you're taking the ovaries out, or tubal ligation, obviously it's one and done for that deer.
Right.
There's only one drug that's approved. It's Gonacon for use on wild animals. It has to be FDA approved.
Right.
That is every year they have to be injected.
For how often? Every year?
Every year.
Okay.
Each deer, every year.
How much is that?
How much is that?
It's about 800.
That's it.
That's the one I remember.
Yeah.
So I thought it was 700. I
Yep.
thought it was just 3 years, but if it's every
Yeah.
year, that's even worse. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Then what about, my only thing, the ocean's a little unique. Neptune has Shark River Golf Course Park, has big open areas where they can go from one area to the other quickly. A wounded deer. We have, I know there's a blood trail they'll find if a hunter misses them or doesn't get them all the way, they'll follow the blood trail out. Our problem is, and what's unique about Ocean is you got go 200 feet in either direction, you're in a neighborhood. You're on somebody's lawn.
Yes, and that will happen. Not very often, but it will happen. But I don't think it's any worse than the deer that are getting hit on Deal Road or Monmouth Road. And those deer will be recovered. You will need, obviously, permission the hunter will need permission to get onto that private property. But those deer will be recovered, and you could require each deer to be donated to the food bank. That's the other thing. You could require the hunters, because obviously to reduce the population, you want to take the females out. So you could require your hunters to shoot antlerless deer, preferably, mature does, and then all of that meat could be donated to the food banks.
Now you said you would work with us with numbers and
Yeah.
census and things like that.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, and then the other thing too, I think the last time we met, we talked about tracking your deer vehicle accidents. That's another way to determine if there's success or not. If your deer vehicle accidents start to, decrease, then clearly you're having an impact.
What has been the increase in the amount of deer over, let's say, a 5 to 10 year period? Roughly.
Well,
I'm not going to
yeah,
hold you to numbers.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers because I don't know what our starting point is. But, the first time I met with Ocean, I don't know if any of you were on the council, was probably 10 years ago. And I only know that because I just came off maternity leave and my son just turned 10. So it's been a while. So I think at that time, Ocean was trying to be proactive. Now you're sort of being reactive. So it can grow exponentially in...
But it's clear that the increase in deer has been because it's just increased exponentially as opposed to development. I mean, it's just...
well, development does play a part in it.
Right.
Because deer prefer an edge. They're not a deep forest dweller. They prefer that edge to come out. So as developments are going in, you're creating that, which is what they prefer, the landscaping, the grass, the edge from the forest. So it does a little bit, and they are eating, tulips and all the pretty things. And so it does have an impact.
Do you see a combination of lethal and non-lethal in some of the other areas? Or is the non-lethal method, does it make sense?
It does not.
Okay.
And that's not to say that it won't ever, but the Division of Fish and Wildlife has been involved with non-lethal methods, birth control methods for decades.
Right.
And there's all sorts of research. I mean, it's never ending, the amount of research that's going on. But none of the birth control non-lethal methods have moved out of the experimental research stage into a viable method. It's still just in that because it's not successful over the landscape. Like I said, you will have some success if you had a fenced-in area and you treated all the deer that were in there, because deer can't get in or out. But when you have that influx and outflux, it's never going to be. So it's not to say that in the future it might be multifaceted, right? So you would have to use lethal to knock down the number that you have now to a manageable level, where then you could maybe have non-lethal. But currently that's not an option.
And if we were to, it depends on how the referendum goes, obviously. But if there is something that happens in Ocean Township, you're saying that Tinton Falls, for example, wouldn't really affect us right away because the deer stay within their area. Is that what I was hearing before?
Yeah, can you repeat that though?
Well, like for example, obviously there's problems not just in Ocean Township,
No.
but Tinton Falls, Neptune, all the surrounding towns that have issues with deer. If we had our area thinned out a little bit, we wouldn't see the effects of them coming into our area from the other towns right away.
Right. Correct.
And this is something that would probably have to happen periodically, yearly.
Yes.
Okay.
If we do nothing, what are we looking at, like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Um,
Like if we do not, if
yeah,
there's-
the forest health of Palea Park is going to continue to decline. And just driving in, I mean, you can see the browse line. It may look lush and green, but it's mostly invasive species. So your forest health is going to decrease.
You say that again. It's what? Mostly.
Invasive species. Yeah. The native plants are pretty much absent from the landscape at this point. So that's going to continue to decrease. Your vehicle accidents are going to increase. Your complaints from your residents are going to increase.
Do they eat that stuff? That's what they like.
They prefer the natives. They don't prefer the invasive species. But if they're hungry enough, they're going to
Give it
eat
a
it.
go.
Yeah, up in Sandy Hook 2 years ago, we had cases of deer coming in with all types of blisters and sores on their mouths because they were eating, the cedar and they were eating the holly trees, which
Rough
is
stuff,
not
yeah.
right. It's not what they should be eating, and you're going to see an increase in starvation too.
so there won't be a point where it'll be self-limiting, where they'll just continue to,
yes,
the
and
population
you're
will continue to increase.
surprisingly, it's pretty far from a biological carrying capacity. At this point, it's more of a culture across the landscape in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty far from a biological carrying capacity where they're going to start regulating themselves. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more damage before you get to that point.
So can you go back to that?
Yeah.
You said some of these deer are starving. I think that was an issue that, they're not in a healthy state.
Correct.
Okay. Because that's a big concern. People, oh, they're lovely, but if they're starving and
Right.
there's that component too.
Right. And feeding that's not going to help them.
Right.
So if your residents are feeding, that's not going to help them either. Right.
So I think Johnny might have asked before about, or somebody asked how many more deer we have, and you kind of used the 10-year example with your kid.
Right.
Forget ocean for argument's sake. I know how they multiply. How?
You sure about that?
Mommy taught me.
2 points.
Is there a rate that you can say for every 100 there's going to be another 20 in a year, or can you give us any estimation of growth?
Well, an adult doe will breed at 1.5 years, and some are breeding earlier than that. But so on average, an adult doe breeds at 1.5 years.
What's gestation time for them?
They're bred in November, so it's November, and they usually give birth May and June. So it's
Wow.
what is that, 6,
Wow.
7 months?
Quick.
Yeah,
And that's every year.
every year.
And the average,
So if you have one female that has 2 fawns,
is that average
yeah,
Okay.
then those 2 fawns are going to have 2 fawns.
in a year and a half?
Yep.
Right.
And then those 4 are going to have, you know what I mean?
Right.
It increases exponentially.
And so on and so on.
And so currently the only thing that's keeping them a little bit in check is they're getting hit by cars. That's it.
That's our only deer management.
Yes.
So what,
Not a good word.
Jody, on
Or hitting
you mentioned
cars.
earlier again, what does a town have to do to get involved as far as manpower, public works, police? That we asked about that, but what exactly would we have to
If
do?
you decide to go with a controlled hunt, an application, first is the ordinance change.
Right.
And then it would be working with us to figure out, one, how many deer you have. And then we would have meetings to decide how many, based on whatever properties you choose, what the hunter density would be and what your harvest objectives are. And then there would just be a application. That's usually about a month of they let the application go out, and then once you get your respondents, then we could run a background check to make sure they don't have any fish and wildlife violations. And then it would just be trying to decide, what days, how many days,
But
the boat.
do we need people on staff? That's what I'm asking. Do we need people there during the hunt hours, or is there a warden or?
No, most of the time it's it could be your township clerk could
Show up. Thank you.
could collect the applications, and then like Cranberry got it done in 6 months.
But I guess to follow
So
up,
I don't think you need to hire anybody else.
do we need DPW there blocking roads? Do we need the police there making sure
No.
nobody's in the park?
No.
Do we need to make sure that the kids don't show up, nobody's running, No soccer. You said
No,
soccer
you
games,
would you would
obviously,
definitely if you're gonna have the park open while the hunters are there, you would just have signage and you would let residents know that it's going to be hunted on this day. The hunters would know not to shoot over the trails or drag deer while there's kids playing soccer. We could work with whatever your recreational calendar is as well. Mercer County Parks does that. They have a lot of activities that are going on in some of their parks, and they shut it down if necessary. The hunters know that that's going to happen, that any recreation will take precedent over hunting, and there would not have to be roads shut down or any of that.
I just have one last question. So, is there any guidelines now coming down from the state, from the county, for the whole state? Are they saying, because obviously we all have the same problem, so it'd be a lot easier to say, just tell us what to do, versus individually making decisions.
Well, it's not cookie cutter. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, you can't really do that. I mean, we do have guidelines of timelines of how things need to get done, but it is pretty individual to each municipality, or if we're working with a county park system, because there's different needs for every township. In different situations. Some of them don't want to hunt on municipal property. They only want to allow hunting on private property. Some only want it on municipal property, so it's different for each town. And even as, developed as Bergen County, Saddle River, this is their second year of having a bow season, and Saddle River is Bergen County. It's pretty built up, and they took out 115 in 1 year. So,
And they started with the non-lethal method, right? Or
they applied for a non-lethal method, but it wasn't that permit wasn't approved by our Fish and Game Council because it had a low expectation of any success. Yeah.
Okay.
So and again, if you wanted to do the non-lethal, anything that was outside of what our regulated hunting is, it would require, like I said, a permit from Fish and Wildlife, and it's called a community-based permit. And I have the manual here, and it tells you how you have to apply and what's needed. And so if you did, want to try for that, you can. I can leave this with you.
Thank you.
Is all that material you have available where we can get to it online somewhere? Or
Yeah, I can leave this one for you. I can leave you this copy too. But yeah, these are all linked on our website.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else? No? Anybody from the public have any questions? No, nobody? Seeing or hearing that? We have a microphone that I can.
Could you come up to the microphone? You want to come up to the microphone?
No,
Oh, it's
no,
picked
it's
up
a
on our-
recorded meeting, so we're gonna have to have you come up. Our clerk's coming down with a microphone for you.
Oh, we did.
We're gonna have you come up here because the camera's that way.
You're good.
If there's questions we can answer.
Kathleen Rush, 10 Magnolia Court, Wayside. Not good enough. Kathleen Rush, 10 Magnolia Court in Wayside, in Rolling Meadows. I just wondered if people, like I have son-in-laws that hunt, and they hunt with bows too. Can they would they be able to do this?
And that would be up to you, but
You gotta use your mic too.
sorry.
Thanks.
Yes, if any of the public properties were purchased with Green Acres funding,
It's open to the state.
it has to be open. It has to be an open application period. So it would be open to whoever wanted to apply. You couldn't just limit it to residents of Ocean County or Ocean Township. So they would have to apply just like everybody else would.
Okay.
And if you had more applicants than spots, then there would have to be a lottery. We would have to work on that too.
And that
Still not by residency, just by it's a state license.
Right.
Okay.
I think
And that would
they
apply
probably
to
have
welts
that.
too?
I don't believe that Monmouth County Parks doesn't even have a lottery process. They just have an application process. So that park in particular would be regulated by Monmouth County Parks regulations, which they follow all state regulations, but they have a different application process.
Okay, so
Okay.
two separate ones.
Anybody
Yeah.
else?
There was a pretty well
Name and address,
publicized.
please.
I'm sorry, name and address. Diane Sermont, 192 Oakhurst Road, Oakhurst. There was a pretty well publicized article in the New York Times not long ago about how the United States has lost 3 billion, billions of birds in the last 50 years. My takeaway, and I might not be right, is I feel like we can have the deer, but then we will have nothing else. So can you talk a little bit about how the overbrowsing is impacting everything else that we used to enjoy in the park?
Right. I don't think it's either or. I think that you can have deer in the landscape as long as it's in balance with everything else. And currently it's out of balance. So yes, that goes back to the invasive versus native. Deer, when they're in balance, they eat the native species. When it's out of balance, they eat all the native species, and that allows the invasives to come in, which are not preferred for most native wildlife species in New Jersey. So when you overbrowse, you're eating everything on the ground, you're eating everything 4 feet up, so there's no cover. So any ground nesting birds, there's no cover for them to nest. And then even in the trees, it disturbs that. Plus, it's also disrupting what the birds are eating.
Okay.
Too. So it's a domino effect.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed in the park, and that's what I've noticed in my own property.
Right.
I mean, they're eating everything. I had to just this week go out and wrap all my saplings because they were eating.
Even on my way in, the arborvitae they're eating, up to 4 feet off of the ground, which is as far as they can reach.
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And just to reiterate that Jody's here just for information only, not to get into an exchange of a debate or argumentatively or anything, just here to give her information that she has available to us. So.
Jill Albert, 341 Wells Avenue in Oakhurst. I was wondering, if you kill all the doe, what happens to their babies that are still feeding?
Well, after a couple months, which is, so they're born in May or June. By the time the deer season comes in, most of them have been weaned and they can survive on their own.
And they all come in at the same time?
On average, fawns are born in May and June.
So there wouldn't be any that are starving because they can't nurse from their mothers?
Correct. On average.
Thank you. Russ?
Ross Bay, 700 Bound Road, Wayside. When you were discussing the hunt and the idea of closing certain portions, I would just like to suggest that if there is a hunt, it's publicized and we put flyers out and make sure that everyone knows so that no one gets hurt. I mean, publicize it heavily. Thank you.
Olga Hanu, 26 Meadows Lane.
Who is it?
Do you
Olga
have
Hanu,
any
26 Meadows Lane.
Do you have any documentation that you can provide to us regarding how they multiplied? You said earlier that if a female has 2 does, then those 2 have another 2. What about if they are no females?
If there's no females
born. Yeah. So they are not going to multiply 2 plus another 2 and another 2 because just the females.
That's true. But most of the time, usually there's a lot of science behind that, but usually the fawn ratio is 1-to-1. So for every...
You have that documentation?
I don't have it on me, no, but I could provide it, or there's links on our website, or if you just Google search like the fawn ratio, it's basically 1-to-1. So for every male fawn that's born, there's a doe fawn that's born as well.
And before
Not
Jody
always-
leaves, she'll
not
announce
always
a
for
website
each-
show, because we tape this and folks are welcome to review the tape and get the website right from Jody. She'll do a little infomercial at the end saying, go to this website for all the information.
Right.
And she'll say it twice, and I think we'll...
Right. So not every doe will have 1 male and 1 female, but on average it's 1-to-1 across whatever the population.
So that documentation, rather than for us to Google, I can Google, but do you have that?
I don't have a
made
citation on me right now, no.
But you have that, have you done that study so that...
I have not personally, but deer are one of the most studied species in North America, so there's a lot of research out there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, Tricia Donovan, 161 Delaware Avenue. I come from a hunting family, and I want to say hunters are very, very respectful. They're very cautious. And bow hunting is a very good way to thin a herd. Watching the deer, baby deer, not so well deer starving is awful. But what I want to say is, if it does pass and you do have controlled hunting, please make it a choice to either give the meat away or let the hunter take it. We are venison eaters in my family.
Okay.
Duly noted.
Don, to the microphone, of course. You know the drill. Oh my God. Made him get up.
Don Stein, Coaster Newspaper. I never come to the mic, but I have to ask you this. When you say lethal, are you talking just about bow hunting or guns? Because it's my understanding if the property is more than 25 acres, then gun hunting will be allowed. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
Well, that could be up to the township, but
So it could be either or?
It could be either or, but for hunter density, it's usually for bow, it's 1 hunter per 10 acres. For firearm hunting, the density would be 1 hunter per 20 to 25 acres.
Okay.
So that doesn't necessarily mean that if you have
So
25
who would
acres,
determine whether, because bow hunting here, some residents have complained that they've seen deer with arrows in them wandering around. And it's a legitimate complaint. But at the same time, so the lethal method could be either bow or gun, and would that be up to the council to make that decision?
well, that would be it would be whatever they decided, but it would be a discussion
And it would be based on the size of the park and the number of hunters?
or what they feel comfortable with, or what your residents would feel comfortable with. In a situation like Palea Park, the division would make the recommendation that it would be archery only.
Okay, because of the residential area around it?
Yes, and it's very effective. It's very quiet. If it was going to be multi-use, most of the people wouldn't even know the hunters were in the trees.
So when you gave your kill ratio of 75 to 80%,
that was for
that's
archery.
with bow hunting.
That was for archery. Yes.
Okay, and also, you said the non-lethal method. Do you have any idea what it costs per deer to use the non-lethal method?
Yes, it's 800 to 1,000 per deer.
Per year?
Per deer.
Depends on the method.
And then it depends on the method if it's an annual thing.
But how do you monitor whether this is working or not?
The non-lethal?
Yes.
Well, that's part of the problem. I mean, that's why it hasn't
Okay.
moved from an experimental or research
because there's no way to
it's
really
not
monitor
proving.
unless you could corral them all together and do that.
And that's just it. Yes.
I got you. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Anybody else? There's a gentleman coming up in the back, and then you can come up, Jack, after.
Do we want to bring up the name of deer program?
What's that?
Do we want to bring up the name of deer program?
Mike Simo, 1101 Roselle Avenue. My question is, if we're going to have a hunt just in Palea Park, I live all the way over across town in Wanamassa, and there are herds over there. And there's herds all over the whole, county here. And they're a migrating animal. They move around quite a bit. I get up very early in the morning. I come up Deal Road, and there are 7 or 8 of them all crossing over and going someplace else. How is that going to stop the herds from building up again?
Well, that was just the Palea Park. I'm not suggesting that's the only one. That's just the one that came to mind. I'm not familiar with every piece of.
But that's what I'm
space.
saying.
Right.
We're talking about Palea Park.
Right.
But what's that to stop these migrating animals to back and forth and keep,
Right.
producing?
Right. I don't know if it would be allowed on private property. The golf course, I don't know who regulates the golf course.
Golf course is a heavy area for them.
Because I know Mercer County Parks, they are hunting their 2 golf courses on one of their parks.
Golf courses under private property ordinance over 25 acres, they could hunt.
Right.
And
So
I-
you know, there are
they do
probably
that.
other possibilities. You know, if the council decides to go with a lethal methodology and with a controlled hunt, then yeah, that we could discuss other.
I
Properties.
understand that, but I mean, it's how are we going to stop these animals from getting together again and continuing producing all over the place?
You're going to be reducing some out of the population, so eventually it's gonna.
And these gentlemen, or whoever, men or women, are going to be able to distinguish a female from a male.
Yeah, well, right now the males have antlers and the females don't.
Yeah, I know that. I see a lot of 8-pointers all over the place.
Right.
But I mean, when you're in the woods, sometimes you don't see those things.
But you know, like I said, they're experienced hunters. They know if they choose to target the antlerless deer, that's what they're going to do.
I just think that being that they migrate quite a bit, as I see in the early morning hours, they're all over the place. Every road is covered with them, and that might be one group there, another group here, and a large group at Pelea Park. And then you got the surrounding towns. They could be moving away from an area where they're constructing something and moving over here because they find the eating much better and the population much better.
Right.
I just don't see where this is going to continue slowing down the production of more deer. I mean, it's going to kill off a lot of deer right away, but I don't see where it's going to stop them.
It's going to help more than what's being done
Okay.
now. Yeah.
If it's
That's
gonna
all.
help,
That's
yeah.
all I can say. Yeah. Right. Then it would be an annual thing. Yeah.
Anybody else? Jack.
I'm Jack Kearns. I'll speak as a resident and as a newspaper guy for Word on the Shore. The question I have is there any value, or should we be thinking about joining towns together instead of just Ocean, because we're in the middle of a lot of other towns? Would we try to reach out to those others to try to form some kind of bigger teams or whatever than we're thinking about just doing Ocean? Is there any advantage to broadening our scope?
A regional approach is always better, but that doesn't mean that if you can't get anybody else on board to not try it. Like Saddle River is the only one right now in Bergen County that's hunting, and they're still having some success. Like I said, the other surrounding towns do allow hunting. It's not that you're the only one that's considering it. Currently, there is hunting in a lot of the surrounding towns. Eatontown doesn't. Oceanport doesn't. But to the west, you know, obviously to the east, there's not a whole lot that are you know, allowing hunting. But
Deal actually allows it.
Yeah.
On private property.
Yep, exactly.
And Oceanport did the hunt, right, for Fort Monmouth.
That was when Fort Monmouth was still federal property. Since it's now in mostly municipal, they're not. And there's so much development going on over there now. They're not hunting what used to be Fort Monmouth.
All right. Anybody else? No? All right. Well, thank you, Jody. Very informative. We appreciate your time and coming out.
Thank
and
you.
joining
And
us
if
tonight.
you have any other questions, let me know. I'll come back.
Website.
Yeah, and you
Share
mentioned the website. for
Yeah,
folks?
our division website is NJ Fish and Wildlife. The end is spelled out, A-N-D. So it's njfishandwildlife.com. On the left-hand side, there's a menu for deer specifically, and within that, there's a lot of research and other links that you can go to.
So if you didn't write that down, we could watch this tomorrow.
Yep,
And
and
you can write it down.
I'm sure you can put the text of my email on the video if you want.
Yeah, I'm sure Tom will
Or if
figure
you just
that out.
yeah, if you go to our website, you'll find me.
We'll put the link up there.
Right.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. At this time, we're going to adjourn and go back up to our workshop meeting upstairs where we have our closed session.
Thanks.
We need to discuss some of our business, monthly, weekly, and future business. So, and then we'll be back down here at 7 o'clock for the public meeting again. Taking a short recess to go upstairs. Thank you all for coming out. All right, then we're going to call the meeting of October 24th, 2019 to order. Vin, take the roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Here.
Council members Achara.
Here.
Donlin.
Here.
Fisher.
Here.
And Mayor Siciliano.
Here, everybody please rise for a pledge of allegiance, and then please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer thereafter. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The notice requirement for the Open Public Meeting Act for this meeting has been satisfied. A copy of the annual notice was sent to the Asbury Park Press Coaster, posted in Town Hall, and filed in the office of the municipal clerk on December 27th, 2018. There are 2 fire exits, one to my left in the back of the room, which will meander down the hall and bring you out to the parking lot, and one to my right, which will bring you out to the front parking lot. If you have a cell phone, I just ask that you turn the volume off because we tape and record all these meetings. They'll be on YouTube tomorrow, and the sound interferes. If you have to make a call, kindly go out into the hallway. If you want to use it for pictures, that's great. It's no problem at all. At this time, I'm going to say, before we do any council reports, we have a very special occasion while we're here. I see some officers lined up, which I didn't read the agenda. I would have wore a tie. Chief, you know, I always like to wear a tie when we swear somebody in, so forgive me for that. But we're going to come down from the dais and talk about our new officers who are going to be sworn in.
I'll sell you my tie.
Let me see. It might match. I should have
It's a
just
clip-on.
taken Vinny's. We'll make it work. So, always an exciting time. We always talk about this. Chief, you come on up with us also. And we say it over and over again because it's so true that these fellas here, all these officers and the lieutenants and the captains and the chief, anytime they advertise a position for an opening for a police officer in Ocean Township, overwhelmed, swarm 100 of applicants. And they go through a very, very meticulous, arduous chore of going through these, vetting them out, and trying to get the right person. So to even be here, to be considered, congratulations, because that's a fantastic feat unto itself. And to you guys that go through all those applications, I know it gets tiresome sometimes, but they don't stop and they do it, and they have an empirical process, and they just keep going, and they make sure they get the best possible person. So we're honored to have with us our officer tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the chief, and tell us about our new officer, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. And in the life and times of police chief, there's good times and bad. This is actually a good one. So I love when we bring somebody new into the force. We've been actively hiring. It has been an arduous process, as the mayor said. So tonight we bring Dane Richards. Now, Dane is no stranger to Ocean Township because he did an internship with us back in 2016 while he was attending Monmouth University, where, of course, he went on to get his bachelor's. Dane is also no stranger to law enforcement because he actually started out in 15 as a Special Officer 1, where he worked for Deal and Belmar. And then in 17, he was a Special Officer 2 in Belmar. And then he went over to Colts Neck in 18 as a 2. We actually wanted to hire him here in 2018 as a Special 2. But he took the job over in Colts Neck, where he then got a full-time position shortly thereafter, which we didn't have at the time. So that being said, Dane's a resident of Eatontown. He did very well through our process. He comes fully trained. He knows basically everything as far as the way the computer systems work and everything else, because we share a computer system in the county that a lot of other departments use. So the only thing we have to do with him is just kind of make sure he knows the area, which he is somewhat familiar with, and then he's going to hit the ground running, which is great for us because that's another officer ready to roll right out of the gate. So with that, I'll ask Dane to come up to be sworn in by the mayor, and a person of your choice, of course, to hold the Bible. Okay, come on up.
We don't
All right. Okay, Dane, you turn like this.
Get you a good shot there. Yeah, right there, Chief. We're good. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Dane M. Richards, Jr.,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey.
of the State of New Jersey.
I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly
that
swear
I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
of police officer
of police officer
for the Township of Ocean
for the Township of
to
Ocean
the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Welcome to the board. Good job. Very good. Yep, we'll take that right here. And we'll stay up here. Stay up here, we'll take some photos. Grandma or the rest of the family want to come on up? We'll get you in there since you swore them in. You might as well get in here. You do the honors. Send that to great. Thanks, Chief. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Good job. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, Mom.
We're going to take a short recess, give everybody a chance to gather themselves, and then we'll adjourn, convene the meeting shortly. Okay, we're back in session. So at this time, before we go into our agenda here, I'm going to go down the line here and ask the council members if they have any reports for us. John, do you have anything for us?
Yes, just final reminder that this Saturday from 4 to 8 is the Maya Spooktacular for the Mylan Terry Foundation. That will be held at Palea Park. There will be no pumpkin carving on site. They will have pumpkins there. Lots of activities. So what? The band is playing. It's going to be a really fun day and night for the kids. So if you want, stop down to Palea Park between 4 and 8 to join the Maya Spooktacular.
Great. Marge?
Just a reminder that there's a Deal Lake cleanup this Saturday from 9 to noon. We're meeting at the boat ramp in Asbury Park. They'll supply all of the materials that you need, and they'll also have Booskerdoo coffee.
Great. Always a good one. Dave, anything for us?
Yes, just want to let you know there's a regular planning board meeting scheduled for October 28th at 7:30 p.m. Also, the League of Women Voters is going to be having a candidate forum on October 30th, Wednesday, 7 p.m., and that's in the Board of Ed building. I do want to recognize the Ocean Township High School team is off to a 6-0 start. Haven't seen that in a long time. Congratulations to the girls field hockey team winning the B North Championship, as well as the tennis team, which I also believe captured the B North Championship.
Beautiful.
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mike?
I have nothing.
Marty?
No, I have nothing.
Rob, election day is?
November 5th.
Okay. Want to make sure we got that in. Also, I'll just mention that this Saturday, October 26th, is National Prescription Drug Take Back Day. Unwanted prescriptions and drugs can be dropped off at our police department and they'll lobby at any time. Also, our Halloween curfew this year will begin at 8 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, October 26th, and go through 6 a.m. on the morning of Friday, November 1st, as per Township ordinance. During that time, no one under the age of 18 can be out without an adult or guardian between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. Election day, as Rob mentioned, polls open at 6 and close at 8. And we can also expect our fall winter newsletter coming out shortly and be on our website soon. Also, I just want to mention we have our my annual Mayor's Cup is coming up next Wednesday. And the benefit of that is all the proceeds to that go to the Community Hope Fund, who provide Thanksgiving turkeys and Christmas gifts and whatnot for the underprivileged in Ocean Township, much like our friends at Cedar Village do as well. They help out tremendously. And also I'll have my annual Super Senior Lunch is scheduled for November 7th, 11:30 to 1:30 at the Renaissance, and that's open up to all our seniors, super seniors, of the age 85 and above. That's November 7th. Okay, and that's over at the Renaissance at Italian American Club at the banquet hall there. Good time had by all, a terrific lunch. We have some entertainment for them as well. We have our DJ on hand, and it's just really a great time. People come out, and we always get a couple people that are celebrating their 100th birthday or more, and it's really fantastic to watch, and they really enjoy coming out. And we do have our bus service available. We just had our new bus put into service here, which we have a CDL driver for that day for that, as well as working on other days as well. That's what we have. So tonight we have our consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions as to what's on our resolutions on the consent agenda only? Again, I might as well read the disclaimer while we're at it. The purpose of the portion is to solely ask questions to understand resolutions and vouchers that appear on agenda, not an occasion for a public hearing on an ordinance. That'll come later. All questions not relating to an item on the agenda should be asked during the public comments portion and at the conclusion of the meeting. So if you have something as to our agenda, consent agenda, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing no one, someone please offer the minutes.
I'll offer.
Second.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Donlin.
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
And Mayor Siciano.
Yes, also tonight we have resolutions 19181 through 19184. Someone please offer.
I'll offer.
Second.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Donlin.
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
And Mayor Siciano.
Yes, and for individual action, we have resolution 19185, consideration of the following sealed bids. Maintenance service at the William F. Larkin Golf Course at Colonial Terrace. Someone please offer.
I'll offer.
Second.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Donlin.
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
And Mayor Siciano.
Yes, and for adoption tonight, we have ordinance number 2327. Vin, would you read the title, please?
An ordinance amending and supplementing ordinance 2311 entitled Personnel Policies, Practices, and Procedures for the Township of Ocean.
Great. Someone please open the public hearing on ordinance 2327.
I'll open public hearing on ordinance number 2327.
Second.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Donlin.
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
And Mayor Siciano.
Yes, anybody wishing to be heard on ordinance number 2327, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing no one, someone please close the public hearing on ordinance 2327.
I move to close discussion on ordinance 2327.
Second.
I'll second that.
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Donlin.
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
And Mayor Siciano.
Yes, action please on ordinance 2327.
I move to adopt ordinance 2327 and publish according to law.
Great. Second.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Donlin.
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
And Mayor Siciano.
Yes, at this time, we will open the public hearing to anybody who has anything germane to Ocean Township. Please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Tell us the nature of your concern.
Diane Sermont, 192 Oakhurst Road.
Yes.
I'm standing before you asking for some help. I have been admiring and appreciating all the bike lanes and all the pedestrian crossings that there are in town, but I'm a little bit biased because I live in Oakhurst. And I actually have a map here of how long Monmouth Road is. And am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Just don't talk until you go back there.
Okay. Well, I don't know if there's enough for everybody, but
You can pass me.
He just said don't look.
I know.
I know. You can just proceed.
so if we start at the bottom of the map there, we're right there at the golf course. And can we see, it's, yours are black and white. Route 15 is actually Monmouth Road.
Right.
Is everybody with me?
Yes.
So if we start at the bottom of the map, the first crossing there, all the X's are crossings, pedestrian crossings. And the first one is at the golf course, which is certainly needed because no one was ever stopping for those golf courts. And the next the next three there are crossings that go to little half blocks. And then the double lines is the traffic light, and then we have 2 more crossings. So we have 6 crossings in the space of 0.4 miles. Then if we go from there all the way to West Park Avenue, the only place to safely cross the road is at Roosevelt. So just tonight in tonight's meeting, you mentioned that there was going to be an event at the Board of Ed meeting, and you mentioned that the voting, and I go to vote at the church. It's just really unsafe to try to walk around Oakhurst. I think there's a lot of people that would like to stay out of their cars because the traffic's so bad. I have a grandson that goes to nursery school at the Wesley School there at the church. and I would love to go pick him up, but I wouldn't even walk to pick him up, but I wouldn't even consider doing that without a crosswalk. So I called Alicia Antunes in the traffic department, and she informed me that it's a county road.
Right.
So I called the county and spoke to Denise Berker. And she informed me that yes, the county takes care of all this, but that they would maybe fast track it, or it would have a little bit more impetus if it came with a recommendation from the township. And what the township needs to do on their end is make sure that there's the sidewalk cutouts for the crosswalks.
Right.
So I would like to request that there at least be one at the church, selfishly, and then maybe another one along the way, because there are so many commercial, there's so many doctor's offices, so many public places that people need to get to.
Yeah, it's a heavily traveled pedestrian area for
Yeah.
sure. Yep. And you're right, guys. So, yeah, no problem. We have no problem submitting this. We did submit something to the county
Okay.
for a better crosswalk area by the golf course of Deal, where those golfers walk across. They're looking at maybe putting a flasher over there.
Yeah.
Because people don't heed that they're crossing.
Right. Well, what
So-
I've noticed is that people don't realize it's a state law.
Oh.
So in the county parks, at the bottom of the pedestrian crossing signs, there's another little sign actually on the signpost that says, as required by state law.
Yeah.
So I think we need to
Yeah, we're going to request
do a
that
little
at
bit
the
more
ninth-
information for the people around here that it's a state law.
Right.
You know, we have, between the deer and the traffic, you know, it's hard to walk
Yeah,
around
we
here.
got to be careful. No, well, thank you for that.
Okay, and I do have another question. When you talked about the Blue Acres upstairs, so the houses, I think I went and looked on the property tax records, there's maybe 7 properties that are owned by the state. Are those all being cleared?
Yes.
Okay, and what's going to happen with that property? It might have been covered previously, but I missed that.
It's just going to return to grass.
Back to nature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to nature.
Okay, great. So how can I follow up on this?
So you can follow up with a email, a question, call us in a couple weeks. I think Mr. Masilla will send a letter to
We'll
the
get a letter.
county on our behalf. I'm also
Okay.
going to ask him to put in that letter that you request no parking on Monmouth Road from Roosevelt to perhaps West Park, because as I found out,
Oh,
that
it's been a
they're
little bit
allowed to
long.
park there. I didn't know that.
Mm.
And in the summertime or other times, some people park on that bend there by
Right.
Oakhurst Road and Harnell.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
And our police can't really do anything about it. They
Right.
can't enforce it because it's a county road, and we have to request that there's no parking for safety reasons, Mike.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, good timing. Thanks, Di. Anybody else? Come on up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Is it the right height? Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome, pal.
Dennis Howlett, 1638 Holbrook Street in Oakhurst. And I have 2 things I'd like to address tonight, 2 areas of concern. The first is that, in my opinion, these are my opinions, Ocean Township is much more vulnerable to a major storm now than it was before Superstorm Sandy. The same stormwater management system that chronically failed over the years and failed dramatically during Sandy has not been improved. Not only were thousands of trees lost during Sandy, but thousands more have been lost to continued development. As described by the Army Corps of Engineers, a recurring flooding problem exists along Poplar Brook as a result of restrictive flow characteristics owing to insufficient cross-sectional areas of the channel and severely inadequate sized culverts. I have a couple of handouts here. I apologize, I only did 5 because my printer ran out of ink.
I don't need one, Dennis. You can hand it to the other members. I'm familiar with the culverts you're talking about.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have one. Yep, sure. Thank you.
There are really no plans to resolve these issues, and it's unlikely that they will be resolved in the foreseeable future. The inadequate culvert that goes under the railroad tracks between Roosevelt and Grant Avenues will likely never be enlarged, and that's really a critical place, as you well know. Poplar Village and the homes on Brookside Avenue on Poplar Brook, downstream from the proposed development at Deal Road and Route 35, were frequently flooded over the years. Sandy was just the coup de grace. Replacement of the lost Poplar Village units with the building behind post office on West Park Avenue cost somewhere around $8 million. Whether that money was from FEMA or elsewhere, it was still our tax dollars. 7 homes on Brookside Avenue, which Ms. Sermont graciously addressed a minute ago, were lost to Sandy, and they were bought out by Green Acres for about $2.3 million. There's a chart in there that I produced. Ultimately, that was our tax dollars too. And to add insult to injury, we've lost approximately $48,000 a year in property taxes from these homes. However, more important than that, there are still about 25 homes on Brookside Avenue, and they are in harm's way. Now, the specific reason I'm up here right now is, according to their own expert, the proposed development at the corner of Deal Road and Route 35 will put more water into Poplar Brook. The proposed difference in volume between pre-construction and post-construction runoff volume for a 2-year design storm exceeds 3.7 acre-feet of water. I have a definition of that up there. An acre-feet of water is 44,000 square feet, more or less, with a foot of water on top of it. Now that's the water they have to address because of their development. Whether any single storm causes damage by itself, and regardless of the groundwater infiltration rate, the area will have more water for a longer period of time. This will impact and exacerbate the effect of subsequent rain events in that time period. Even when it's being released over 72 hours, during that 72 hours, we are more vulnerable to a storm that happens to occur in the 72 hours. And you know how that happens. Sometimes in August in particular, we'll get a rainstorm on a Sunday, and then maybe one on a Tuesday, and maybe one on a Thursday. And there's still going to be more water in the ground from the prior storms, which can exacerbate what might have been a 2-year storm into a 3-year storm or a 5-year storm. I've also included a chart of how frequently these storms can happen. Just because it says a 2-year storm doesn't mean it's going to happen every 2 years. A 2-year storm could happen on a Monday and it could happen the next day, just like that. It's about the percentage of when it will actually happen. The development will take some 24 acres of land will be cleared, and over 4,000 trees will be removed. And that's a very low estimate, 4,000 trees, because when you talk about the trees that are going to be removed, they only talk about the trees that qualify for certain consideration. Other trees that happen to be less popular trees also help diminish the effect of stormwater runoff. The water that those trees used to store and used to transpire back into the atmosphere will have to go somewhere. That somewhere is in the surrounding neighborhoods of our aquifer and in Poplar Brook. This is not a trivial amount of water. Moreover, at the October 7 Planning Board meeting, it was revealed that the stormwater management plan for this site has been revised. They've gotten rid of surface infiltration basins. All piped basins will now discharge directly into Poplar Brook. Water that was previously directed to Harvey Brook and ultimately Deal Lake will apparently go into Poplar Brook now. It's also not clear whether those plans have been reviewed by the state DEP. Nor is it clear that the supporting documentation was made available to the planning board before a vote was taken. In summary, additional stormwater runoff will worsen erosion, raise the water table, and put people's homes in danger. What will be the straw that breaks the camel's back? Or maybe drowns the camel would be better. Over time, there's a clear potential to create more Brookside Avenue conditions for homes near Poplar Brook, at the end of Findorn, Holbrook, Westfield, Melville, Chatham, Ampere, Belmar, Delaware, behind the Temple on Deal Road, and all the way to the railroad tracks between Roosevelt and Grant Avenues. That affects my neighborhood directly. How does this promote the general welfare of the town, and how can it be allowed? Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody else have anything? Mr. Scheer, come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Olga Hanu, 26 Meadows Lane. In the recent planning board meeting, Estabola Realty made an application to change the signage for the Ocean Plaza that they own, where the Wegman Shopping Center is. one of the principals of Estabola Realty indicated under oath that 2 of their tenants is no longer going to renew the lease. Pier 1 Imports is not renewing the lease, neither Stain Mart. Those are big retailers, that they are nationwide retailers, especially Pier 1 Imports. That gives you an indication of the economy here in Ocean Township, that we cannot support those retails. Also, e-commerce is also a factor that is throughout the nation. Gelco, who has been in business for many years, just posted big signs that they are closing the store here in Ocean Township. That's also an indication of the health of the economy here in Ocean Township.
No, it's not.
Well,
I'll let you
I'm
continue.
giving you
Okay.
my opinion. You can disagree, but I feel like as a commercial realtor, that shows that if a corridor with so many retailers that they are vacant, that shows that the population of the traffic passing by, they don't support that business. That's what they are leaving the town. And that is a reason to repurpose whatever vacant properties we have, rather than build more or clear cut, land or some, like in the case of the new proposed development, rather than leave it the way it is and repurpose other buildings. The other request that I have, and that is the formal request to you, I would like to see the language of the resolution that they are going to be presented next Monday, to see if, after hearing the cries of the residents and the pleas of the residents, if you are going to include the berms and other things that the residents that they were not in favor of this development made clear to you that is needed. So I wanted to know when that language, when we are going to be able to see that resolution before Monday.
Okay, that's not with us, that's with the planning board. I don't know when they'll have it up available to you, but I would probably check tomorrow if you want.
But you as the mayor, you don't have that. Nothing.
Just to make it clear, I said this before, but the planning board is a separate, autonomous body. They're not controlled by us, and as a result, they make their decisions. They pass their resolutions. We don't control that or try to dictate what they should do.
Yeah, and it doesn't come to the office of the mayor before it's on.
No, resolutions come before the planning board. They're prepared usually by the attorney for the planning board, and then passed at the meetings. Generally not seen at all by the mayor or council.
So Olga, the agenda is on the website, and it does show that the resolution is being memorialized.
I know it is being memorialized. I wanted to see the language, what they are going to present. When the residents have the right to see that beforehand. Is there a period of time before they memorialize?
There's nothing required beforehand. Typically, when they present it, and I'm not sure if we're still doing this, that we would post it somewhere prior to the meeting so that somebody could look at it. But
I just asked Mike, sorry to interrupt you, I just asked Mike, like we do for the council meetings, we should just be able to put a link there for the resolution.
Well, sometimes it's not prepared until the day of the meeting. But the bottom line is, it's might be posted on a board the day of the meeting, but if it's available beforehand, I would say call tomorrow, the planning department, and see when it's available and when you can come take a look at it.
I was also going to go in detail what Dennis Hallard just mentioned, that the day of the vote, the attorney for the applicant made for the first time inform everyone that the stormwater management is changing. Nobody knew beforehand. No documentation was available for anyone to read it, and neither the planning board to see the consequence of the change of that. And they vote. There was two. The councilman Duty and Chairman Borelli were the only two that they have the courage to vote against that proposed development and in favor of our quality of life, our environment, our safety. And there is, I believe, one of the councilmen that now is running for another position that controls a huge portion of our budget. I can imagine to be our residents and the children to be in the hands of a person that vote against the safety, the environment, and the quality of life of Ocean Township.
Okay, it's not a councilman, it's a board member that.
Board member.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think you
sorry.
said council.
It's not a councilman, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just wanted to clear
It's
that
a,
up. No problem.
board member.
The board member, gotcha.
Sorry.
Okay.
Now, regarding the earlier meeting here, regarding the deer, I don't know who is going to craft the language of that ordinance, but I would like to see if the public can be invited to have an input, because I'm sure the attorneys are crafting to have proper insurance, and because there are a lot of group of children from the schools that they go to the park, and we haven't been effective in getting proper notice regarding everything that's going on with the town. So when there is so many activities in the park and residents, and nowadays everyone wears headphones, I don't know if everyone is going to be aware when this hunting is going to occur, if there ever passes that. Also, for that same purpose, since this exercise is just to curb the deer population, when the hunt is concluded, who is going to check that they are just hunting the females to curb the deer population, and it's not just as a sport or as a hobby that they coming just to get trophies to put it on their walls.
Yeah, we're far away from that happening, but
Yeah,
when that
hope-
happens,
yeah.
like you said, we can always craft an ordinance to really be the way we want it, and even request that they don't pull anything out of, if it goes that far, that they're going to have a hunt, that they don't pull any deer out until we say so, and maybe we can have someone there.
Yeah,
to,
and for
as a
how,
gatekeeper to see.
Yeah, and also
the
what
count
period
is.
of time is going to be, because since this is just to curb the population, it's not just to clear the wildlife that we have and what makes our community, different than other places. Thank you.
I agree. And the only thing, I'll let you sit down. I'll just want to reiterate something. I know you're a realtor. I'm a realtor. That the fact that a few stores closed are not indicative of a poor health of the economy in Ocean. Rather, the opposite. Maybe it's not a fit for those stores. As you see, CB Square continues to add on over there larger stores than that, and they're thriving pretty good. That site, when I came on council in 2003, was on its way down, and probably I saw it go through 7 tax appeals. Went from a value of 110 million to a value of 40 million. And now these guys have put a lot of money in and built it up and had attracted tenants. It's almost at a 95% occupancy rate, and the value continues to go up. Since council's been together, since I've been mayor, rather, Highway 35 has brought in several new locations: Madison One Savings, the Century 21 building, Taco Bell, and numerous others. So, the economy's healthy. Our value of the town has grown by $1 billion in 4 years. So our tax revenue has gone up consequently that much as well. So the state of affairs aren't as bad. And yes, we do have plans for a rehabilitation zone in all of our commercial areas to kind of inspire landowners and others to come in and do something nice there on those properties without a 30-year tax abatement that other towns may have to give. So we don't lose anything on that as well. So, okay, Olga, you have something else?
I think you took it the wrong way. It's not that the town could not attract these big stores and like Pier 1 Imports or Stain Mart. No, that is not the point. The point is that the revenue that these stores need to keep the stores running, they don't have. That's what they live in, because if they were profitable, they will stay in the town. That is the point.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying they're probably going to attract. I mean, Stavola is a very, very savvy developer and landowner, and they built a beautiful site there. I remember it was the old Arcadia Gardens when it wasn't so pretty years ago, and had a pizzeria and the old Arcadia Gardens in the back. But now it's a beautiful site, and they'll probably, the reason I want a sign change is because you want to be able to put smaller tenants in.
Correct. That is precisely what is going to happen. Yeah.
So they'll probably get a smaller user. My estimation is that site that will be back to 100% occupied not so long from now.
Yeah, but also these vacancies that they are along the Highway 35 and all the
biggest
stores.
Vacancies, really, you're probably talking about Orchard Plaza, which someone is interested in purchasing as we speak, and they'll probably come with some very nice plan for that property as well.
Not only that, but the reason for me speaking to you is that if there are any applications coming, just to first see what is there vacant and repurpose those rather than
Here's the problem. You as a realtor know you can't do that. And I'm going to tell you what. Let me give you an analogy. And we got to think of property being owned by individuals, whether they're commercial or residential. Doesn't matter. It's still their property. So us as realtors, somebody comes in and says, I'd like to buy a building lot. There's a building. We have a lot of building lots left. There's probably 47 building lots still in Ocean Township. I'd like to buy a building lot, build a brand new house. And we say, you know what? We're going to have a moratorium on building lots. You have to buy these foreclosures first because we want to get rid of those vacant properties. We can't do that to somebody. Or the guy wants to sell their home to somebody. You can say, well, we don't want you to sell your home to that guy because we want him to buy this foreclosure instead. So you can't sell your house and move to that job in Texas. You have to sit there. We can't restrict people like that. In America, they have the right to quiet enjoyment of the property, and they can also sell it. And if they want to make a profit, they can do that. And commercial is exactly the same. You can't restrict it like that.
It's not that you restrict it, but
you're trying to say, don't build on that property, go to this vacant one. I don't want that one. I want this one.
Yeah. But the overall, if you look in terms of the environment and the future of our community, what it makes more sense is to repurpose what is there vacant and laying idle there rather than, kill our community. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't disagree with that part of it. I just say the people with the money get to purchase what they want. The guy wants to have a Cadillac instead of a Volkswagen, he's got to buy one. Okay, thank you. More on economics later. Anybody else? Come on up to the microphone and yes, Mr. Sullivan. You coming from the back? I think this.
1 second.
Mr. Sullivan, we have a woman in the back of the room coming up to say some nice things to us.
Hi, Melissa Stryker, 2301 Appleby Drive. I spoke to you the other day. I have left 2 messages and sent an email, and I called Rob yesterday, 2 days ago. Appleby is a residential street, and 2 blocks from my house, it's been going on now for several months, someone is running an automotive business. What, you want to?
No. Oh, I didn't know that's what you were going to talk about.
And it's been up to having 14 vehicles there. It's right next to the children's park on Wickapeka and Appleby. It's not zoned for commercial, and I'd like to know why that is just going on and nobody's doing anything about it. I have called twice and left messages with Kate Maloney. She hasn't gotten back to me. And I sent an email with pictures of all the cars parked out on Appleby Drive, nose to nose. Some days there's 6 cars parked out there on that first block when you come in off of Wickapeka. It's the garage apartment. There's a very small house right next to the park, and then that property, I think it's 2103, has a double garage apartment in the back. And it's a business, and it's inappropriate for that area, and I would like to see that it's closed down. I don't think it should happen there.
Right, absolutely. Rob, you said you had
No,
some.
wrong place. Sorry, I
Okay.
got another one.
All right, no problem. And you did, I think, was it you that sent me some reported app thing? I got maybe some other neighbors who reported
Well,
app.
some other neighbors we've been all talking
Yeah.
about it.
So, and then I did forward it to code enforcement. So
There were less cars on Appleby today, but then tonight they're right back there again.
When did you first send the notice?
Not this week, last week, or maybe even the week before was the first phone call, I think. Then I waited, called again when I didn't get an answer. Then I sent an email with a picture of some of the cars parked on Appleby, and I didn't get a response. And there's actually a sign there to advertising or promoting someone to run for the school board on the property. So I feel like they must know people in town. But I also think the little house there is being run as an Airbnb. But I'm not going to be the eyes and ears of everybody to check that out. But there's just cars parked nose to nose to nose, and some of them have for sale signs, and some of them, are sitting there for days at a time. And the driveway, you go down there, it's just loaded with vehicles.
Do you know what the address is?
I'm pretty sure it's
the one next to the
2103.
little park there, Mike, right on the corner.
Because typically what would happen, I mean, I don't know if that's gone out yet, but once there's a problem, they look at it, and then typically they would send out a notice to the property owner, not necessarily to the person complaining, but to the property owner, telling him he has 30 days to resolve the issue that's required. So a lot of times there's a 30-day notice. I don't know
what was the issue?
I don't know what's happened here.
They're running a business there. It's
Well-
not zoned for commercial.
Correct.
It's
So-
residential.
So the same thing's happening in Oakhurst, and I'm sorry, I thought that's what you were actually going to bring up. And when I talked to zoning and code enforcement, they all so far, and we may need to change something. They said if you have a license plate on your car, and you're parking on the street, we don't have an ordinance yet that says there's a limited number of cars being able to be parked on a street. So if those are legitimate registered cars, they can park. I'm not
That's
saying
not
that
the only issue.
No.
The
I'm just
issue
letting
is
you know
the
that issue.
business.
Correct. Having said that, they have to check and see if that business is really happening or not. If it is, that's different from the cars. They may still be able to, I hate to say it, leave the cars on the street, but the business is a separate issue. So they need the license, they need everything else within the town to do it. And if it's not zoned, certainly that's an issue.
Well, it's not.
Right.
It's a residential neighborhood. And the fact that it's right next to the little kids' park.
Correct.
Some of the neighbors who have spoken to me, that they noticed it more than I do because I'm on the same side of the street and I'm on 2 blocks up and I don't have a dog that I walk. So it's the dog walkers that have been saying, have you seen this? And they're all telling me about it and they're noticing it. And some of them have young children and they don't like the idea of a business right next to the kids' park. And they say, stranger danger, you don't know who's coming in to do business there either. And, there is a lot of stuff going on there. So I would like something done about it. And I would like an answer when I leave a phone message or when I send an email message. And I'm very perturbed that I haven't gotten a response to anything.
My apologies, I didn't check voicemail.
Okay. But it was, you were the last person. All right. There was other people that I contacted before that.
I'll address it with them.
And I didn't get anywhere.
I'll address it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Sullivan, come on up to the microphone. State your name and address for the record.
Mayor and Council, I'm Edward Vincent Colleen Frederick Sullivan. I reside at 721 Corley's Avenue, West Allenhurst, New Jersey. First, I'll apologize to Kate, Tom, and Dave for the Gestapo comment. We're all hurting over this situation. And I'm really here, I do sincerely apologize to them. Sometimes I lose it. But I'm really here on behalf of Elizabeth Whitehead, David Wyndham, Brian Anthony. That's a family. Patricia Whitehead, Ursula Johnson, Paula Calabrese, Joanne Ryan, Natalie Cozine, and Brandon Overbeck. Basically, at this moment right now, in my part of the house, because Michael and Michael live in the other part, there's 9 people plus myself. I'm begging you is please don't throw these people out in the street. The reason I kind of lost it last time is this is very stressful. I mean, we're talking people here, and it's making people sick because people don't know where they're going. We've made tremendous efforts to try to find things, and it's just a tight rental. And the people with me, they looked at the Barnegat affordable housing, but there it has a minimum income, which they don't make. So housing is a very difficult thing. My attorney, great guy J. Lowell Juckett, is saying that unless I get everybody out by the inspection date, which I believe is November 6th, 30 days from the court. Another thing I want to say, people have said I disrespect the courts. I certainly do not. Timothy McGochran is definitely worthy of the term honorable. He's a very fair and decent man. I've never had a disrespect for the court system. People seem to think, well, the judge knows best. Very honorable man. I do have a little problem with these tickets coming at me. I don't really see why that should be happening. It puts me in a position where obviously I have to defend myself while I have to get people probably in a temporary motel and then try to subsidize housing and then defend myself legally. It puts me in a situation where independently, I have no choice but to go to once this all settles down, assuming I still am a homeowner at Ocean, and I do want to stay because I love it here like everybody else does. Once things are stabilized, it leaves me no other recourse than to independently go right to get somebody who wants to make a name for themselves to take this to the Supreme Court, because I really honestly don't believe that it's constitutional to regulate the type of people that I can have in my house. These people are my family. It's maybe it's not a traditional family, but because I'm a little guy and don't have access to huge legal batteries, and I can't even get government help because one government agency won't go after another. Basically, we're talking mainly women here. A nice family and a man who's a very patriotic living saint. I don't want to fight with you guys. I really don't. And I'm not. Very nice neighbors of ours, I'm not going to mention names, said respect this ordinance, but it is the single family issue because we could easily get in compliance with the uniform occupancy codes, but the single family basically leaves us with Michael, Joanne, and myself. It just seems kind of sinful to have a big, beautiful house and not be able to have friends stay with me. I really don't understand why I've been in court. I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, even people who don't care for me. I understand that. Please, as I say, I'm here on behalf of the 9 people, and we are trying to find a place, but they keep falling through. We've been diligently looking, and everybody's scared out of their minds.
Mr. Sullivan, have you
when
tried...
girls cry, can you stand it? I have girls crying because they're scared.
Have you tried to look into housing authorities are the ones who can help with subsidies. So you say that the income is too, or they don't make enough, or they're too high, or whatever.
Well, to qualify for affordable housing, low-income housing is a different category.
Right. So there's subsidies for that.
We
now,
did apply
Neptune
for
and
some.
Long Branch have a housing authority nearby.
We have
So-
applied. In fact, Long Branch for 3 days opened up their Section
Right.
8.
There you
It,
go.
it does go.
And the
flow
county,
out.
of course, has it.
And we did apply for that, but that will come. It's a lottery system. 3,000
Yes.
people were able to apply. It ended yesterday, 3
Okay.
days.
So I just want to make sure you're looking into every
we are
every available
we definitely
resource out there, because there's plenty of them out there for folks who can't afford to get into a place.
But there's waiting lists and time factors and constraints. We are.
And you know,
I have
listen.
Precious Parker's the smartest advocate I know, and she has, she has found homes for a lot of the people when it was higher, and I have not taken anyone in except Joanne, and she's the daughter of a family that I've known since I went to St. Mary's. So.
Well, we're hopeful that it's all going to work out eventually. These folks will find a
We're
housing
trying.
that's going to work out, and
Mayor, we're
you know,
trying.
it's in the court's hands. I know they're working with you on it as well. So,
The
you know, we
courts-
wish you luck on it. We're rooting for you. I want you to know that.
And I'm rooting for you. I'm in a tough position because
I know you are.
We're trying. I'm willing to subsidize rent. If anybody has a rental unit, these are people. I'm very happy. I feel safe. I'm a little because I'm not exactly your average person. I have friends and I have some people that don't care for me. I feel very safe having a lot of people. These specific people. I'm wonderfully free of OCD. It's great, and if you have that, you got to be careful, extremely careful, not to be too careful. It's been wonderful. The town knows who's there. We're not out to harm, disturb anybody.
Mr.
We're
Sullivan?
really not. We're peaceful citizens. We don't bother anybody. And yes, we've toned it down a lot. And
It's got a lot better.
and we're trying.
I know you
And
are.
again, I have women who are scared, and it's really it's horrible. We don't know. They say business doesn't like uncertainty, and neither do people. And I'm just trying to.
Well, we're holding out hope that I think things are going to work out for you, and I'm sure these folks, something's going to come through, and it's going to be a good resolution at the end. In the meantime, we have to follow the ordinance, and I think you understand that. It's nothing personal with you, of course, and it's just trying to maintain the quality of life for everyone else around you. Your rights end right at your property line, and then your neighbors picks up.
There's a thing too two things I would like to comment to what people said at the last meeting.
Mhm.
The one fella, I don't know his name, but he said your rights end at the property line. Really, your rights end in the border of the United States of America. It doesn't follow us through other
I'm
countries.
saying
but
your rights to do what you want with your property,
Well,
but
that
to infringe
actually-
upon others.
Do I? And if you're violating others, I went to a meeting. Believe it, I'm not a council person. I don't go to meetings usually. But when Mayor Weldon, when they passed the ordinance saying a landlord, because I used to be one, is responsible if there's more than 3 complaints, then the landlord has to post bond. And we were like this because I said that's third-party responsibility. If somebody's violating the law or noise ordinance, whatever it is, that's what our great police department's for. And the police have always been very professional and nice. They've been really good. That's what they're there for. It's like a circuit breaker. If a circuit's overloaded, the breaker drops. It isn't a thing where you need a third party, because if there's a problem, I'm a little old-fashioned, except I have such respect for private property rights. When the court first, I was writing letters at one time, And I didn't even go on my neighbor's property to give it to them because I figured they don't want me there. I'm not somebody that's trying to be a thorn on anybody's side, and neither are the people with, they're scared, and these are people. And the other thing, to my friend John Huss, and he is my friend, I like that man, but he said, I don't like the idea of 17 people. There's 9 plus me, plus Mike and Mike. And, I believe the Constitution should be respected and a right should be protected. And that's why it's great to delegate the job to you folks.
Mr. Sullivan.
And just please don't kick these people to the curb, because I love these people.
Right.
Each one of them, I've named them all.
You did.
That's who's here. We're not out to violate anybody or hurt any neighbors. We're not.
Well,
We
thank you for
say
your
hello.
comments once again. We really appreciate it. And I appreciate you coming again, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you.
God bless you
Thank
and
you. Have a
those
good
you
night.
love.
All right.
Definitely, everybody, even the people that don't like me. God bless you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Look, step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Carrie Gordon, and I live on Dwight Drive, Ocean Township. I just want to readdress the woman who was here earlier today. Was she from the Fish and Game, Department of Fish and Game? Wildlife? Okay. She actually had given some conflicting information that actually originally I'm from Watchung, so I'm very familiar with deer hunts and how they used to go around. I was a large landowner in Watchung, and I own a few acres, and I was approached to do hunting on my property because I had a stream, so the deer used to congregate. So I do have some background with this, and the information that I would like to refute and put it on the record is, and there is a report available, and I can email it to you all.
Well, you can source the report.
Source the report from 2018, so it's actually relatively recent. Is that with regard to sharpshooting and bow hunting, the New Jersey Division of Fish and Game found that the archery deer hunters were estimated to have retrieved only 43% of the deers that were hit by arrows. So that's that less than half of the deers they were able to find and treat, which means that, people would stumble upon these with
the 57% or
who
knows,
right. So right, and of course, a deer that is not killed immediately with an arrow, is going to run, and it could potentially. And when she was saying that this was going to be taking place, the park wouldn't necessarily be shut down or wherever this was taking place. You could have a deer running, like a bull. It's in pain, it's in agony, so it's going to charge or do something, lash out at the first person it sees. So besides the fact that it's an ugly scene, because within the report there's the pictures of the carnage and how the deer left blood trails, elsewhere. And the scientific info is that the Union County Parks Department concluded that before the female deer living in the reservation before the hunt, the female deer living in the reservation only gave birth to one fawn. So that kind of contradicts what she was saying about the two-birth thing. But after the hunt, the female deer on the reservation had multiple births of twins or triplets. And that's a scientific thing because, species try to repopulate, so they always try to get back to where they are. So there is a lot of scientific, contradictions to what she had indicated. So this shows that the selected method of the sharpshooting and the bow hunting is truly not the best way to go. Basically, Watchung itself is considering other alternative methods, which were the more expensive with the birth control as opposed to the actual more lethal killing methods. So that's all I wanted to bring to your attention, and just the fact that, with the decision about the 32 acres, there will be a boom in the deer population, migrating out of that area that is now deforested and exposing them back out into the environment. So, okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else before we adjourn? Okay, I want to thank you all for joining. Somebody make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Napolitani.
Yes.
Council members Achara.
Yes.
Donlin.
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
And Mayor Siciano.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming. We air twice a day on Channel 77 and 22 at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. And also, these meetings are archived on YouTube. You can see them 24 hours after this meeting. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.